Hey there everybody, and welcome back to Into the Walking Dead. And today I wanted to discuss The Walking Dead and how it deals with time, which is a topic that has interested me for quite a while due to the show's rather strange history with it. For those who might not know, these first 8 seasons actually take place over only about 2 years. To be more specific, 1 year and 8 months. Now this is usually a shocking revelation to any viewer that hears this because these 8 seasons came out over the course of 8 years. So in the 8 years of us watching these characters, they've only actually experienced barely 2 years of the zombie apocalypse. However, I don't think this is necessarily an issue for the storytelling. The biggest hurdle most people have with it usually has to do with Carl, who basically goes from a 10-year-old child to a grown young adult in the span of, well, almost only 2 years. Puberty hit him real hard. But at the end of the day, the show is following the comics pretty closely in terms of how much time is shown passing and how much actually happens within that time, which is a lot. And I actually think this short period of time helps give context to some of the characterization in the show that some audiences may be surprised by simply because we're experiencing these stories over years of our own lives in comparison to the only months of the characters. For instance, Rick's mental breakdowns, Morgan's dips into insanity, and Carol's wishes to separate herself from all the loss and violence. These make a whole lot of sense when you factor in that these characters' lives are basically non-stop trauma for 2 years. I mean, in the timeline, Rick and his group are kidnapped and almost murdered by the termite cannibals only a week after the prison was destroyed, and then only 3 days later they lose Beth as well. It's kind of a miracle these characters aren't actually more insane than they turn out. And these short spans get even shorter as we reach seasons 6 to 8. Basically the whole first half of season 6 takes place across 2 days. And the same goes for season 8. We get multiple episodes back to back that are all only happening in a matter of hours for these characters. And while something like Carl's age doesn't really bother me, I can pretty easily look over it. The pacing of these storylines is the area where this suffers. While the show mirrors the comic timeline, it differs in how much time it dedicates to this time span. A complaint many people had of season 7's first half is that it feels like Rick is depressingly beaten and under Negan's thumb for far too long. In the timeline, these 8 episodes actually only take place across 4 days, but it feels a lot longer for people watching 8 whole episodes of it, not to mention when they're watching it live across 8 weeks. While the All Out War comic arc only takes up 12 issues of the comics, the show dedicates an entire season to the war, an entire season of what amounts to about a week of time for our characters. Now I don't think the specific amount of time passing here is the issue. Earlier seasons balanced this short amount of time excellently, like season 4's back half, which also takes place across about a week. But because of its many varying perspectives and really solid character writing, you barely notice the time passing. The characters' investing development keeps the story going. They even play with time nicely in how different characters come across things from other characters' paths. For something like season 8 though, this fast exciting war doesn't feel particularly fast and exciting when it takes 16 episodes to actually end. You can feel the time being stretched out by the writers, which ultimately hurts the pacing of the show. Now season 7 and 8 have a lot of other factors that make it the weakest seasons, but this sort of pacing certainly doesn't help. Condensing these 2 seasons into 1 season or 1.5 seasons would have helped a lot, both on a budgetary level but also a storytelling level. Then we wouldn't have useless plot lines like Rick getting captured by Jadis' people just so he can recruit them, just so they can then run away the moment they get shot at. The writers basically just elongate Rick's character arc to pad the time. After being shot and completely betrayed by Jadis, who takes part in killing members of Rick's own community, Rick then uncharacteristically tries to side with them again, just so he can get betrayed again in a much lesser degree, and then finally hate Jadis 10 episodes later. The show gives their reasons as to why Rick acts like this, and I get it, but it's pretty thin, and a lot of people see through that.
We could make another deal.
Trust you. Shot you.
You grazed me. I would have still been mad if you'd shot me.
Why in the fuck?
They try to add more excitement into some of the battles and quicken the pacing in season 8 by starting it with us learning our group's plan of attack as they do it, rather than us seeing the group work out their plan of attack beforehand and then engage in it. But this ends up making it a bit of a confusing mess because we're trying to keep up with a multifaceted plan going on with multiple groups of people all at the same time while merely trying to figure out what they're actually trying to achieve. It makes it even more confusing and ineffective when characters start breaking the plan or failing at the plan, but because we barely even know what the plan is, it's just all muddled stuff happening. But this isn't to say all of the pacing in these 2 seasons is poor. Just like the seasons before it, because the show dedicates a lot of time to these characters, we feel and create a bond with them. We feel like we've known them for years, which technically we have, but more so on an emotional level, which perfectly mirrors how these characters would feel about each other. Despite only being together as a group for 2 years, because of everything they've been through, it makes it feel like so much longer, and makes their bond all the stronger. We as an audience feel that family connection build and grow just as the characters do. We're there with them through every heartbreaking loss, desperate action, and even the small little moments of peace, happiness, and love. In Season 7, one of the most memorable and effective moments of the show is when Rick and Dal reunite halfway through the season after being separated by Negan. It's a beautiful moment made all the more powerful because we have felt the length of them being apart. And that's why, despite some of the issues its pacing can arise, I still appreciate the time dedicated to everything. But just as this form of pacing was arguably at its worst with Season 8, Scott Gimple stepped down as showrunner and Angela Kang took over, and this is where things changed drastically. While the first 8 seasons only took place across 2 years of time, Season 9 and 10 have already traversed over 7 to 8 years of time in the apocalypse. So while Season 1 to 8 mostly take place from 2010 to 2012 in universe, the show as of Season 10 is basically caught up to the year 2021. Yay! Between Seasons 8 and 9 there is a time jump of about 1.5 years, the biggest time jump the show had had so far. And then after episode 5 the show has another time jump of about 6 whole years. And since then the show has already surpassed about another year of time. These big time jumps have given Kang's new era of the show a fresh feeling that has really assisted in rejuvenating The Walking Dead. Obviously not every episode is jumping years ahead of the next though. Kang has done a great job of pacing these 2 seasons, much like the earlier seasons of the show, with plenty of strong conflicts, new characters, and unique developments for the whole cast that move at a strong pace. Some of the standouts from this include Negan and Judith, who are only the way they are because the show took that leap and jumped years ahead in time. It is weird to think though that these characters have now spent more time without Rick than they ever were with him. Come back Rick, I miss you. But recently, in Season 10, something strange has begun to happen. The show has steadily started to adopt the polar opposite issue that Seasons 7 to 8 have. While those seasons began dragging out plotlines too long, Season 10 has begun skipping over and rushing plot points of importance. I started to notice this early on in Season 10, where there might be an exciting sequence that they build up to really well, it starts, and then they cut it off rather early. The first time it was particularly obvious though was after the cliffhanger ending of episode 11, Morning Star, when Daryl and the group are suddenly trapped outside of Hilltop, stuck between the burning walls of Hilltop and the approaching herd of zombies. That's a pretty high stakes situation to leave us wondering how they're going to get out of it. Then episode 12 opens and the wall has already burnt down and the characters are now fighting inside Hilltop, completely negating the cliffhanger. Now considering how great episode 12 is anyway, I don't think this is an issue, but it was a sign of what's to come. In episode 14, the episode ends with Beta beginning to regather his horde to attack Alexandria, which is a huge moment in the comics as the biggest horde we've ever seen completely ravages through the community. But before we get to see any of that, in episode 15 of the show, we suddenly cut to Beta and his horde already inside the walls and our group having already abandoned it. This was the first time this sort of jarring little time jump really stuck out to me in a negative way. Alexandria has been our group's home for basically half the show's entire run at this point, and you'd think you would have a tension-filled sequence of everyone seeing the ocean of zombies slowly approaching and having to evacuate as they begin tearing down the walls. That would have been superb. Much like the dread-filled sequences we've had in the past with the various enemies meeting our group at their gates. They're always successfully tense moments. But instead, we never see our group's reaction to this massive plot point. We never see them evacuate and never see the walkers even break down the walls. We just cut to it and they're already inside, completely taken over. To me, this was a complete waste of opportunity for a moment that is super important to the story. Characters are even still talking about how devastating it was that the Horde broke into Alexandria, but we never even saw it, so how can we truly connect with it? 2 episodes later, Daryl is even surprised it happened in the first place.
What the hell happened?
Whisperers left a parting gift.
Didn't they know the Horde was coming? What did they think was going to happen? The fact that I have to ask these questions shows why omitting such an important moment is more confusing than beneficial to the story. At the same time, we also don't get to see Daryl, Carol, or anyone's initial reaction to learning that Michonne has completely left. The most we get is a conversation between Daryl and Judith. A super brief conversation between Daryl and Carol, but nothing else, despite it being a huge moment. Then in the finale, the show has been building up to the rivalry between Negan and Daryl against Beta, but the fight ends in about 10 seconds. Now I still love this episode overall, but I can't deny that it was a bit of a shame we didn't get to see a more lasting confrontation. It sort of just abruptly ends and there we go. It sacrifices another lasting moment from the comics for something much less effective. Then at the end of the episode, Maggie returns after an absence of a whole season and a half. This is a big deal given we haven't seen her since that 6-year time jump. I was so excited to see how these characters would greet each other, what they would say. I was looking forward to experiencing a happy, heartfelt moment of some of my favorite characters reuniting. And at the end of the episode, she reunites with Judith, who has since grown up considerably since the last time she saw her. And it's a sweet moment, but Maggie doesn't say a word. She just smiles and that's it. No reuniting with anyone else. Besides Gabriel, I guess. And before the extended 6 episodes aired, I was so hoping that we would open the next episode with getting to see these reunions. But deep down, because of this strange form of storytelling they started creeping in, I had an awful feeling that they weren't going to show it, for whatever reason. And what do you know, we get a brief exchange of dialogue between Judith and Maggie, her reaction to seeing Negan, and then no other reunion in episode 17. We don't get to see the first time Maggie sees Daryl and Carol again after such a long separation. Daryl later even says he thought Maggie might have been dead. So of course it would have been an incredibly effective, heartfelt moment to see them reunite, especially after all the hardships they've just been through. But they just cut to them talking like she's barely been gone a day. We don't even get Maggie's reaction to Jesus, Enid, or Tara's deaths. Nor do we even get a glimpse at some of Maggie's time away and raising Herschel. We don't even get to see the first time Daryl properly talks to Herschel in all these years. The camera just pulls away. No, come back, no! The Walking Dead has always prided itself on being a character-centric show. Its dedication to portraying all of these characters' hardships, loves, and developments has had an enormous impact on me. Paired with the many years I've been watching the show, I've grown up with these characters, and they've influenced me so much that they literally feel like family and friends to me. So it hurts a lot when the show suddenly starts omitting moments that should reaffirm and strengthen this bond I and many others have with these characters and stories. And I know Angela Kang is capable of this. She's written some of these many amazing episodes and moments that connects me with these characters, riveted me through the story, and that have affected me personally. The whole finale of season 9 is incredibly character-centric and has a truly wonderful moment where the characters stop and have a snowball fight of all things. It's a beautiful, quiet, sweet moment, much like that reunion Rick and Daryl have in season 7. And even the first half of season 10 takes a lot of time to build the tension brewing between our group and the Whisperers, which makes the payoff of the war all the more satisfying. And so because they've proved they can do all this so well, it sticks out even more when they start cutting corners. And no episode has done this more lately than season 10's episode 18, Find Me. Now I was excited to see this episode, as its premise revolves around getting to see more of Daryl's time searching for Rick in the 6-year time jump. And to my surprise, in the episode we learned that in this time, Daryl met a woman named Leah, fell in love, began a relationship, and decided he wanted to leave everyone and everything else behind to be with her, but she disappeared before he could finally tell her that. And do you want to know how much time this relationship takes place over in the episode? 18 minutes. From the moment Daryl meets Leah to their last scene together, 18 minutes pass.
You don't know anything about me.
You're right. I don't. So let me ask you again. Where do you belong, Daryl? Or do you belong here with me? Now choose.
Whoa!
Slow down, Maurice.
Now, to convey why this is a big deal is to explain how Daryl has not had a love interest for basically the entire show. 10 years and 10 seasons of the show airing, Daryl has had little signs of love with Carol and Beth, but if anything, they were really just strong friendships. In season 9, the character Connie was introduced, who throughout the back half of the season and first half of season 10, they started slowly building up an actual romantic attraction. It was cute seeing Daryl slowly come out of his shell, and their characters play off each other so well that it's undeniable that I was won over by this idea. I thought they were handling Daryl's first real romance perfectly. Now, I'm not completely against the idea that Daryl actually had another love during this time looking for Rick. I think it negates some of the initial impact his relationship with Connie had, but I don't think it's the worst idea. There are brief moments in the episode where it clicked with me, particularly when it's abundantly clear how lonely they both are in this scene.
I could catch my own damn fish.
Why you always throwing stuff at me? I was trying to be nice.
I don't need you to be nice. I don't need you to be anything. I want to be left the hell alone.
Won't bother you again.
Then I won't come around again.
Good.
Great. Bye.
Thought you were going.
But overall, I've never seen the show rush through something so important to one of its central characters. I have a feeling of where this is going to lead to. I definitely don't think we've seen the last of Leah, and I think her return is going to play a big role in season 11, which makes it all the more a shame that the writers decided to cram in this backstory in a single episode and expect us to truly care. I don't know why they thought that I and any other fans were ever truly going to be on board with Daryl wanting to leave everyone we've seen him form a relationship with over 10 years for a character that we've known for 18 minutes. It's jarring and unnatural. Making Daryl smile so much is unnatural in its own right. But it's only happening because they want this whole relationship wrapped up in 18 minutes, spanned across all these years. I've connected with the Walking Dead characters in large part to how much time the writers dedicated to making us care, and 18 minutes of brief little exchanges between Daryl and Leah isn't exactly going to win me over. Perhaps in time I will learn to appreciate this episode, and I know it'll be easier to do that once the show dedicates more time to actually giving us full scenes with Leah, but right now it's like we just watched a YouTube montage of best of clips that don't really mean anything to people who haven't seen everything else around it. Imagine you've never seen the show before and you turn on a video of Glenn and Maggie's best moments, although with much less chemistry, and that's how it left me feeling. In my opinion, if they wanted to do this whole storyline in one episode, we actually should have experienced the episode from Leah's perspective. See her lose her friends and family on screen. See her lose her son on the same day that Dog is born. That sounds like a great concept for a heartbreakingly bittersweet scene that could very easily help us connect with her as a character. And then that way, when Daryl finally comes into the picture, we can have their relationship progress at a natural rate. As it stands, her bluntly explaining her past trauma doesn't exactly do much for me. It's just telling and not showing from a character we haven't even been given a chance to care for. The show wants us to get to know Leah, connect with her character on a personal level, and connect with Daryl and Leah's relationship to the degree that we want to see him only be with her all at the same time. And naturally, it didn't work for me. It's too much to expect of me and others at once. And frankly, it comes off as just a bit lazy, especially after they spent so much time slowly building up his relationship and chemistry with Connie. I see fans of the episode saying people don't like it because it's not action-oriented or fast-paced enough, and that people just don't like those character episodes. But that's the exact opposite of why I didn't love it. It rushed through the great character stuff. One of my favorite episodes of the show is Still from season 4, which entirely revolves around Daryl and Beth's relationship. And it succeeds because we actually get to see these two characters go through genuine emotional hardships with solid build-ups and payoffs. It's not scattered across multiple time jumps and quick 30-second disconnected scenes. When Daryl and Beth flip off the burning house and both walk away, and we finally see Daryl smile right at the last frame of the episode, it brings tears to my eyes. It's a really beautiful moment. But when Daryl just randomly stops in the forest and is like, oh, actually I do want to be with Leah, it really doesn't make me feel anything. Because of everything before it being completely rushed through, I don't feel the emotions that I should be. And Daryl doesn't even see anything in a visual manner which conveys why he wants to go back to Leah. He doesn't walk up to the river again and see himself in the reflection alone or something, anything. He just randomly stops and turns around, and we're supposed to go, yeah, go Daryl, I don't know why you're doing this, but okay, spend the rest of your life with Leah, yay. Interestingly, as I was making this video, the next few episodes of the show aired, and we got Splinter and Diverged. Both episodes that have been incredibly criticized for being too slow, boring, and uneventful filler, much like seasons 7 and 8. The show has taken yet another extreme turn in its pacing, and while I actually don't mind these episodes, they could no doubt use more going on to make them far more exciting and effective stories. Whether it's lack of budget or an overly cautious COVID-safe approach, these episodes are decent, but nowhere near the quality they could be. Now, this might be a controversial opinion, but I actually prefer these episodes to Find Me because at least they take its time with its character work and storytelling. Find Me had the potential to be far more dramatically effective than both of them, but because of its rushed nature, I simply prefer the episodes that actually give us full proper scenes with these characters and time to digest it. Now granted, they're not perfect either. Diverged is likely one of the most blatantly fillery episodes the show has ever had, which makes it all the more strange to me why Kang and the writers chose to structure these bonus episodes in the way that they did. No one was forcing them to rush through Leah and Daryl's relationship in a single episode, and have a whole episode about Carol making a soup. Why not expand Daryl and Leah's backstory and tell it over both Find Me and Diverged, if not more of the 6 episodes? And then we can increasingly cut back and forth between the past and present, building up these relationships in a natural and smooth manner. Why they chose to have an episode with rich material completely rushed over, and then episodes with very little going on be very meticulously and slowly paced, is just strange, and makes me think that they likely didn't put nearly as much thought into these 6 episodes because they're busy putting their real effort into the final season. That being said, I'm still glad we got these episodes because I love spending time with these characters, particularly as the end of the show was nearing. Also, I thought the episode One More was a fantastic one which utilized a small cast perfectly. It wasn't too little, and it wasn't too much. It was just right. As for the slower pacing of Diverged and Splinter, I don't think they're very indicative of what Season 11's pacing will be, and it's merely just a casualty of COVID. Really, it's the rushed pacing and cutting corners that may stick around and leaves me a little worried. Overall, I'm very hopeful about Season 11. I think Kang and her crew are very likely going to pull it off and make a fantastic final season. After all, the majority of Seasons 9 and 10 have been fantastic. I love what Kang's done with the show, but I just hope that going forward they stop cutting corners and really give us everything that they can in this final season. I want them to soak up every bit of drama, tension, development, and action that they can. I want them to go out with a bang. I want them to show everyone's different perspectives and opinions on each storyline that is going on. That's always been something The Walking Dead has done so well, balancing such a lively and strong ensemble cast. There's a saying in screenwriting and filmmaking that with any scene, you should get in late and get out early. And that's very true, but not when it's at the expense of important characterization or the actual emotional impact of your story. No one wants a Game of Thrones Season 8, which infamously cut corners and rushed through its characterization and storytelling, jumping all over the place. Now, there's no doubt going to be more time skips in Season 11, but as we've discussed, that can be a great storytelling tool. And the fact that we're going to get 24 whole episodes should mean that we're going to get a truly epic, meaty, in-depth season. But it's also worrying hearing that, if not for COVID and these extra 6 episodes, Kang was going to skip over almost all this stuff in these bonus episodes. And to me, that's shocking. They were going to skip over the first time Maggie sees Negan again? The first time Maggie and Judith spoke? The first time Daryl gets to see Herschel? These are the moments that I love to see. If I was to choose between a drawn-out storyline to one that is superficially rushed over, I'll take the drawn-out one any day. I love every second we get with these characters, and I truly hope that the final season they take their time with it. They slow down and give us every sweet, important, small little moment in amongst its larger story. And on that note, I'm reminded of something an old wise friend once said a long time ago. Thank you for watching.
I like what father said to son when he gave him a watch that had been handed down through generations. He said, I give you the mausoleum of all hope and desire, which will fit your individual needs no better than it did mine or my father's before me. I give it to you, not that you may remember time, but that you may forget it for a moment, now and then, and not spend all of your breath trying to conquer it.